Okay, so today we're going to talk about accessible STEM, and I'll repeat any questions that are asked so that the listening audience can hear the questions as well. Um, so I appreciate you being here. We have two lovely audience members. My hope today is that you will get an idea of some of the barriers that students with disabilities experience when trying to access science or or equations. And I'm going to demonstrate for you how to generate accessible equations and also what a non-accessible equation sounds like to someone who would be using a screen reader. And I think we'll also talk about other format types, like Braille, and also how DSS can handle helping you with accessible graphs. So to start with, I wanted to just go over, I throw the term accessible around a lot, and I have to remind myself that it's not super obvious always what that means. So what does accessible mean? Well, when online content is considered accessible, it means that someone with a disability is able to acquire the same information that someone without a disability would be able to, engage in the same interactions, and enjoy the same services. So this is a wide-ranging category, but um, so they should be able to do all of these things the same way a person without a disability would do in an equally effective and equally integrated manner with substantially equivalent ease of use. So that's a pretty lengthy definition. Essentially what we're trying to say is you should be able to do the same things, not necessarily in the same way, but you should be able to glean the same educational benefit from something, whatever that content may be. And hopefully not in a super cumbersome way. So how do people with disabilities use computers? And again, disabilities is a very wide-ranging term. I myself would qualify for disability support services if I were a student here at DVC. I am not blind and I'm also not deaf, but those are the two categories we tend to think of most when we think of the word disability. And in terms of barriers to online content, folks who are blind or have low vision or who are deaf tend to meet the greatest barriers because it is such a visual medium, and with videos, obviously, that's very auditory. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on today with our discussion, is how to accommodate those students who are blind or have low vision, especially with math. But folks who are blind or have low vision will typically use screen reading software. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that. And that essentially is a software program that allows a user via various keyboard commands to access anything on the computer. Internet, documents, anything. For folks who have low vision, typically what would be helpful is screen magnification software. Those come built in on our PCs now. We're all pretty familiar with them. It's something that most of us will probably need at some point if we don't already. For folks with mobility impairments or even learning disabilities, voice recognition software is often very helpful. You might have heard of Dragon Naturally Speaking. These are programs where you wear a headset similar to the one I'm wearing right now. In fact, the headset I am using is a Dragon headset. It came with our Dragons software. And you speak to the computer and it types out what you say. You can also use voice commands to open your email, to generate email, to send email, to construct PowerPoint presentations, most things. Excel spreadsheets, it's very cool. Folks with learning disabilities sometimes like that because they just think better when they're voicing their ideas rather than having to think, okay, well, how am I going to write this out? Or maybe if they have poor handwriting, they find it much easier to have the computer type it. And last but not least, typically people with mobility impairments might benefit from what we would call alternative input devices. You may have seen, has anyone ever seen a sip and puff mouse? Yeah, so you have, Concha, that's great. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a mouse device that fits inside a person's mouth, and via sips with their mouth, like if they do a sipping motion or if they do a puff, like p, it can dictate how the mouse moves on the screen. So all sorts of cool devices. If you Google it, you can find all sorts of neat things. We, in our own lab, have a head-controlled mouse where a camera fits to the top of the monitor, and then the student, we have these reflective dots. They can put it directly on their head or on glasses or on a hat, and by moving their head, they control the movement of the mouse. And if they linger on something for like 2 seconds, you can change the settings, but it will double click and things, and it has an on-screen keyboard so they can type out things, and it's pretty cool. So anyway, just a few ways that computers are made accessible to people via technology. So here are some of the specific brands that you might encounter. JAWS stands for Job Access with Speech. This is one of the most popular screen reading software programs. It does cost money, but has very high functionality, and most students that come to us that are totally blind or are becoming totally blind have been taught how to use that via various training programs before they came to us. NVDA I'm going to mostly be using today. That stands for Non-Visual Desktop Access. It is free. If you go to this website, you can download it. It is Windows specific, so they don't have a version for Mac. But if you are a Mac user, VoiceOver is a built-in screen reader. That is very good, in my opinion, from what I've been able to see about it. And that is also free, obviously, because it's built into the machine. Okay. Screen magnification software, ZoomText, is something that all of our machines in this room have. Every student lab on campus has ZoomText automatically on the desktop. It's a magnifying program. It can magnify larger, actually, than 32 times the regular size. At that point, it's super big, but it can do it. And it still maintains crisp text resolution. And then obviously Windows operating systems have their own magnifier as well as Macs. Okay, and then I mostly already talked about this, but Dragon Naturally Speaking is the most popular voice recognition software. And then also, iPhones are becoming more compatible with voice recognition. Siri can recognize voices. So, all these things sometimes yeah, and she answers, sometimes she answers questions in a funny way, but, this kind of technology is becoming more ubiquitous just in our daily lives. Okay, so how do screen readers fare with various math and science authoring tools? So Microsoft has a built-in equation editor. Now, Concha, I know you use LaTeX. Catherine, do you tend to use the Microsoft equation editor? Okay, so what I'm going to show you right now is a demonstration of how NVDA will read an equation generated with that. And before I do that, I just want to make one note. I'm going to show you some authoring tools today that that I do encourage you to use, although it sounds like Concha's already using something that is that does interact nicely with screen readers. This is really important, especially if you have a student in your class that is going to need, that has a visual impairment and is going to be needing to read the math content on a computer. If you don't have any such students identified in your class, I would say it's not as necessary to specifically author it in that way unless you're going to be posting things, unless you teach an online course, because at that point you wouldn't know necessarily if someone in your class is going to be using a screen reader. But I would encourage you to get in the habit of just using some of the tools that I'm going to show you that are accessible, because you never know when a student might add the class, or someone potentially becomes someone that needs this kind of accommodation, even if they didn't before. So, but for online courses, it's a must. If you use Microsoft Equation Editor, and then you save it as a PDF, it's still not going to be accessible because it wasn't created with an accessible authoring tool. So let me show you right now what Microsoft's equation editor sounds like. I'm going to go into a demo document. So I've made several documents, and each one of them has the quadratic formula on them, and you'll see how each one reads. So let me turn on my screen reader.
Welcome to NVDA Dialog Accessible.
Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard NVDA before, I know you have, Catherine. It is very robotic sounding. Most screen readers are robotic sounding, so don't be put off by that.
Quadratic formula Microsoft Native Equation Editor Word. Quadratic formula Microsoft Native Equation Editor. Microsoft Word Document Edit Multi-line. Page 1 Section 1 Quadratic formula generated with blank. Microsoft's Native Equation Editor. Microsoft's Native Equation Editor equals minus plus or minus 2 minus 4 2. Run. No speak. Mute.
Okay, I muted him. So you could see that is not what was up there. I have had people tell me, oh no, it is accessible. And people in the accessibility field have said, oh, it's accessible now. And I'm thinking, well, what screen reader are you using? Because every one I tested on, it won't read it. So let me play for you. Actually, let me go back to my slide briefly.
Slides tapped from.
So the next ones that I'm going to show you, and I won't go back to the slide. I have a list here, so I'll just know what to show you. But the next one I'm going to show you is a product called MathType from Design Science. So the question is, can we get MathType on our computers? Yes. IT is familiar with MathType. We have purchased it for our department. It is, and I have this on a future slide, so I'll show you that in a second. MathType, there is a pro version and a light version. The light version has limited functionality. You can't use as many symbols and things like that. The pro version is $57. I'm really, both of you being math instructors, I think it would behoove you both, if you think this would be something valuable, to talk to your department about purchasing multiple licenses, because MathType is a very popular authoring tool. It's used by many other colleges. The one after that, called Equatio, is new. I have heard that it's going to be free for educators on November 28th. We can try it out. It is not known yet to IT, so there might be, like, if you try to download Equatio, because you can download a free trial, you're gonna probably have to get administrator rights, and I don't know if it hasn't yet been vetted by IT because it's so brand new, so I don't know if they'll have a chance to kind of check it out first. Yes, you absolutely. If you have your own computer, you can certainly play with it, and I'll show you a demo of it today. And then last but not least, Wyrus is an equation editor for Canvas. So MathType and Equatio you can use on a PC or Mac. Yes, Wyrus is built into Canvas. Good question. So the question is, can you generate an equation using Wyrus, because it's already in Canvas? You don't need to pay for anything. Can you copy that and paste it in? I'm going to have to test that. That's a great question. If so, great. Yeah, and that's very easy to use, as you've seen. So I'll have to test that. That's a really good point. Right. So Canvas has its own native equation editor, which isn't. Yeah, well, but I found that it doesn't read properly. So, and I can demo that for you too, because I made a fake page. No, the native equation editor in Canvas. No, Wyrus is in there, but you have to kind of look for it. So let me show you now, or if you want to take a break, I can pause this if you want to show her. Here in the lab, we were playing around with getting the Wyrus equation editor onto Canvas. So I will show you a demo of that for those of you that aren't here. But what I'd like to do first is show you how MathType interacts with the screen reader. So I'm going to go into document that was generated with math type.
Slideshow, slide stack, minimize, quadrat, minimize, close, folder view, OA, open it, quadratic.
Okay, this was generated with math type, and again, I apologize, I'm not sure why this red line is appearing. Let me unmute my NVDA.
Volume, mute, toggle, check, minimize, quadratic formula math type Word, quadratic formula math type, Microsoft Word document edit multi-line, page 1 section 1 quadratic formula generated with black spelling error math type, black, the fraction with numerator negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac and denominator 2a. Run, speak, mute,
Okay,
toggle, check box,
so as you can see, it tried verbally to expound what we are seeing up here on the screen. So it did much better than the Microsoft Equation Editor. Equatio works, for time's sake, I won't play you that. It sounds the exact same. But what I do want to show you, let's see. Well, let me show you how the Whereas Equation Editor sounds, because you saw it on your desktops, but I'll show you what it sounds like.
Running text, no speak, volume, mute, equation editors and screen readers. Carries top secret testing course window, equation editors and screen readers.
Okay, so I'm going to do some keyboard commands just to get us there faster.
Elements list dialog, type, tree view, out of list main landmark, clickable, equation editors and screen readers, heading clickable level 1. Heading clickable level 2 native canvas equation editor.
Okay, so what you're about to hear is the native canvas equation editor and how it reads. And please forgive that it says clickable so much. Anytime there's a space in between text and there's a line inserted, a blank line, it will say clickable.
Clickable graphic, clickable LaTeX, 3 less 5.
So that was reading LaTeX 3 less 5, but the next thing...
Clickable graphic, clickable LaTeX, SQRT64 equals 8.
See, it says SQRT, so it's a little right. So now if we go further down into the Whereas Equation Editor...
Clickable, heading clickable level 2 Whereas Equation Editor, recommended by Chancellor's Office. Clickable graphic, clickable 3 less than 5. Clickable graphic, clickable square root of 64 equals 8.
Okay. I'm actually going to turn off my NVDA now. The first equation was generated just with the Canvas editor, the equation editor that you just see right when you go into Pages. So, you know, hopefully you can see from that, or hear, I should say, that they're not all created equal. Obviously, we want it to be easy for you, so we're not trying to make this cumbersome. So, but Whereas is easy to use, and then also you'll find with math type and Equatio, they are also very easy to use, and I'll show you that in just a second. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so here's sort of a matrix I made of pros and cons of each authoring tool. So the Microsoft Equation Editor, a pro would be you don't need to download anything because it comes with it. It's no extra cost. But the con, obviously, well, it's not accessible with most screen readers. In this case, I said SRs. So it's not advisable to use Equation Editor if someone with a visual impairment is enrolled in your class, or if you teach online. Math type, it's easy to use, which, well, I think it is. Again, I hope you'll find it that way. There's an extensive library of content. It integrates really nicely with Word. The light version is limited in content. The full version costs $57. So I guess you can consider that a con. Equatio, you can do handwritten math. Like if you have an iPad, you can write it in and then or if you have like a touch screen computer, it will do its best to convert handwritten math. I haven't had a chance to test that very much because, again, it is so new. I only learned about it last week. It integrates with Word. Chemistry notation is included, so for science folks that might be helpful. And I put no cost question mark because it's such a new product. I'm not sure if it's going to remain free. I kind of feel like, well, it sounds too good to be true if they're going to make it free for educators. Is it going to stay that way? Are they going to get us hooked and then want us to purchase something? I don't know. So, yes, Equatio was made by a company called TextHelp. TextHelp, yes. I did find too, just in my testings this last few days, that it's slightly clunky to input several equations at once. MathType, you can input one equation, press enter, input another one, press enter, and then when you have them all, you can just send it over to your Word document. Equatio, I felt like I had to do one at a time and then send it over, which I didn't like. I might be not using it properly, but that's what I've been able to find so far. Okay. Where can you get these? And I know I haven't showed them to you yet, so I will do that. But MathType, you can download a 30-day trial, and this PowerPoint will be up online. I can send it to you as well individually if you want. There's a URL for MathType. DVCIT is familiar with this technology, as I said. We've purchased it for our department. Equatio, you can download a free trial as well. DVCIT is not yet familiar with it, and they may be reticent about downloading it. It might require some sort of vetting process. Again, rumor has it Equatio will be made free for educators on November 28th, so stay tuned. I will certainly be, I'm on their mailing list now, so hopefully I'll hear from them. And then Wyrus is simple because it's already built in. It's a built-in LTI in Canvas. Most of the time, the equations are pictures, but it still has the code built into it, so we would probably still want to test that. So the question was, previously we had asked if you could copy an equation from Wyrus and put it into Word, for example, and will that read? It's being copied as a picture, which isn't necessarily maybe not a red flag, so we would probably want to test that with a screen reader. Okay, so what I'd like to show you now is what MathType looks like. So I have it on my computer. When you download it, it looks like, okay, I feel really stupid. What is this? Is that a Sigma? Wow, okay. Now I have Light. Okay, so my trial ran out and I haven't yet had them put it onto my computer because we have a few licenses of it, but we mainly have it on our testing computers. So this is Light. This is the Light. The full one has like the quadratic formula already laid out that you could just pop in, or like other more complicated formulas. But so for example, if you're authoring with this, I could just say, you know, could go in here, square root of 64. I think I have to do that. Oops. All right. Just a moment. Equals 8. And then I could have a Word document open. And if I have my MathType here, I can go File. Let's see. Oh. Oh, it's not. Normally I would be able to, let's see, save. Oh. You know, because I have Light, let me see here. Oh, I'm not quite seeing how I can insert it. This is interesting because on my desktop I have the full version. So the question is, how do I insert this into my Word document? Okay, well I'll have to get back to you on that. But with the $57 one, you literally push a button and it inserts it into your Word document. So I'll have to experiment with Light, how to get it in there. But as you can see, the typing of it is relatively simple. At least this is a very simple problem, but I would like to think that it is. And then Equatio, let me just get out of here. Looks like this. So it brings up a screen on the bottom, or a little bar on the bottom rather. And what you can do is click on that. Oh, I'm sorry. Open your Word document. And see, there's a LaTeX editor here. So Concha, I would be kind of curious, how that works. Again, I'm not super familiar with LaTeX, so someone that is, such as yourself, that would be really good feedback. But what I've been using is just the equation editor down here. And so I click here and it has the prediction. So I'm going to type qua and notice, quarter, quantity, quadratic formula comes up. And I can do space and do another one, but I really was trying to get down to the line below it and I wasn't able to do that. So that's why I felt it was slightly clunky. But then to insert it, you just click Insert Math. And it goes into, but this is very simple, and then this bar kind of always floats on the bottom. LIM, sure, let's try that. So we had a request for typing in LIM. Okay, limit or yeah. Insert. And there it is. So, and I could move. Yeah, so, this is a very exciting product. I was super interested in going to this session, and I'm glad I did. And I do plan to bring it to IT's attention so that they can get to know it, and I want them to test it out and see so that they can feel confident there's no, viruses attached to it or anything. But supposedly it is becoming free for people with like a .edu address. So we'll see. I thought the same thing. Yeah. And then here, if you click down here, there's the handwriting recognition. I don't have any devices that allow me to do this, so I haven't had a chance to test it yet. You can also do speech input. Oh my gosh, I'm talking right now. I wonder if it's gonna, okay. No, I'd have to push record. Okay. So let me try that actually. What should I say? Square root of 64. I always go to the square root of 64. Okay. It's, yeah. Well, it's like, what math problems do I know the answer to? Okay, let me see. Square root of 64 equals 8. Okay, let me try that. Okay, let me go down. So I've had another request to, sorry, what do you want me to say? Integral of 4x? Do I say the integral? Oh, okay, okay. Integral of 4x. Oh, wait, I didn't type here. Sorry. Integral of 4x. Integral of 4x. Seems like it's a little slow right now. I don't know. But anyway, it did this. Yeah, so, I'm not on the, I don't know if it matters that I am not hooked up to a hard line. When I downloaded Equatio, it does ask you to sign in with like a Google account or like a Microsoft account. So I think it might use the internet somehow. So I'm not sure if it's a little slow because of that. But anyway, the voice feature is kind of cool. And then over here, this is a graph editor, and this uses something called Desmos. Yeah, so they've contracted with Desmos. So, oh, I would love to. I would love to come to a department meeting. And I'm still learning about a lot of this. So maybe, but together we can kind of navigate these waters a little bit. I'm not super familiar with Desmos, so it sounds like I've mentioned this to a few other folks in math, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Desmos, I know that." So I would love to know more about it, but yeah, they have interact or partnered with them. Yeah, so I think that, let's say I put in like what should I do? Like, help me, math people. Okay, y equal, let's see. Wait, okay, hang on. How could I do? Yeah, I'm trying to think how I could add the square root symbol. Um, okay, so I just did y equals 8x because I was struggling with how to add in the square root symbol. But it shows the line, and then I could do insert graph, I believe. I think. Let's see what happens. Okay, and then it goes in there. And I would hope you could like squish that down a little bit. So anyway, more to come. I know IT is going to be like, why are you telling all these people about this product and we haven't even seen it yet? But I literally learned about it like 5 days ago. So I'm bringing it to you because it's exciting. So yes, you can email Percy Roper. Just let him know you're interested in this, and because all they really need to do. No, you can. Oh, no, I know him well, and I work with him, and you can say, we found this product, we're interested in it. Can we work with you to kind of, you know, um, talk about licensing, and yeah, so you can talk to your dean, right? And if it is free, then that would be great. Again, I don't know if that's going to last. That's what they're saying. So yeah, I think IT just likes to kind of vet the products to make sure that there's no. I am on several committees that IT is also on, and they are open to accessibility and want to work with us on it. So I think that's very promising. I think we just need to have conversations about it, and the more people that bring up these things and say, "Hey, we want to use this," you know. Um, so that is Equatio, and I showed you math type, and then you saw Whereas. Now I just want to go into one more thing. Um, so other types of content. Braille. We can do, some of our students still use Braille. They read something called Nemeth Braille, which is a way to convert, it's a way of reading math via Braille. So we don't produce our own Nemeth Braille, we contract out to it. So, but we can do our own Braille in-house if it's pretty basic, like if it's pretty basic math. But for more complicated math Braille needs, we contract out. So we send out the book, and then they send it back to us in a Braille format. So I'm just letting you know this so that you know it's possible. And yes, yeah, like a textbook. And it comes back. Actually, each textbook ends up being like 4 Braille textbooks because they're thick, So it's kind of neat though. And for exams, what we're commonly doing right now is using a scribe to read and record. If more accessible math is made, we might not have to do that because obviously that costs personnel time and all this stuff. We're happy to do it, obviously. You are not responsible for making. How should I put this? We are here to support you. Okay, so I don't want faculty to feel like it's really burdensome for them to make their content accessible. What I'm doing, and Catherine knows this, she's been to many of my workshops, my goal is to impart to you some easy ways that you can integrate into your daily practice that are going to make everything more universally designed so that our campus isn't so much like, well, that's what DSS does, that's their job. We're all part of the mission of making things accessible. So that's just my little soapbox right there. But again, any student we're going to accommodate. We will find the way to do it because that's our job. So if you have a student who's like, I don't read Braille, I don't like using NVDA screen reader, I only want to use such and such screen reader, but it doesn't work, then let us know. We'll find a way to get that student the information. Okay? For graphs and charts, we can emboss special paper to make a raised version. Obviously, this works better with simple graphs. Here's an example. We have a machine that will do this, and the student can feel, they get an explanation, obviously a verbal explanation, and then they can feel for themselves sort of what we're talking about. If we have really complicated charts and stuff, sometimes we'll divide them into smaller segments, like blow it up, in other words, and let the student kind of feel their way through smaller segments and then get the larger picture. There's so many tactile products on the market. It's really, really cool. There's so many tactile graphs. There's so many tactile maps. So sometimes it's fun to just Google that and just see what's out there. So we also have the ability to, provide some of those products because a lot of times they're relatively inexpensive. But yeah, there's so many opportunities to make math and science accessible for students with disabilities. Even in chemistry, there's measuring tools that are accessible that are much more tactile. There's talking calculators, so someone can can hear what they're typing in. Just lots of neat things. It's a very exciting field. We're trying to get more people with disabilities to even consider going into STEM, because a lot of times historically they felt like, well, that's off limits to me. But it doesn't have to be that way. So okay, a word about PDFs, and then you're almost done. Generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend, if you have another way of transmitting the material to a student, if you want to use PDFs in your class, that's fine, but I would recommend keeping the source file somewhere, because PDFs could be fine for most of your students, but if you do have that one student who's like, this PDF for some reason isn't reading properly with my screen reader, you have the Word document. Oh, okay, here, let me send that to you, and you have it at the ready to give them. But I would like to check yours, Concha, that are being used or generated with LaTeX to see if that would work. So yeah, and then but by and large, it's fine to use PDFs, but have that source file somewhere. If you don't have the source file, you only have a PDF, you got this handout from someone a long time ago and you have no idea where they are now, let us know. We'll work on converting it with some, our bag of tricks, or we'll just work on recreating the content. Again, that's something that we can do. You don't have to take the time to do that. So last but not least, I am, and we are, meaning DSS, here for you. So you can contact me with any questions you have. I love learning about accessible math and accessible science. I think it is so cool, and it's like the final frontier. So any questions you have would be great. I love, anytime I learn about new products, I will let you know. And then obviously our department is always here for you as well. If you have any concerns about how to accommodate a student, please let us know. And so I will then pause the recording and we'll post it online. Thanks so much for coming.